Spanish language interpretation for this meeting, please notify LAHD staff to obtain a headset. Those who are here in person that do not speak Spanish will also need a headset for English interpretation. For those on Zoom that require interpretation, is that true? I didn't see headsets being delivered. Are there headsets available to us here in the room? My Spanish is choppy. Okay, just one moment while in just one moment, everybody should receive a headset that needs Spanish interpretation, like me. However, if you are on Zoom and you require interpretation, please select the appropriate language interpretation using the globe-shaped interpretation button, but only when you require it. Otherwise, please tune in to the main audio channel. For example, if you are in the Spanish language interpretation channel and there's a public comment in Spanish, you will need to switch to the main audio to hear it in Spanish and vice versa. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, now on to roll call. I will ask our city attorney, Michael Custodio, to please take roll.
Chairperson Jones. Vice Chair Coulter.
Here.
Committee Member Barca.
Here.
Committee Member Barragan.
Here, I'm sorry, here.
Sorry.
It's live.
Committee Member Holland. Committee Member Knight. Committee Member Lewis. Committee Member Lipa.
Yes.
Committee Member Morales. Committee Member Nishimoto.
Here.
Committee Member Reed.
Here.
Committee Member Romero.
Here.
Committee Member Rout. Committee Member Solano.
Present.
Committee Member Saya. Madam Vice Chair, you have quorum. It's 7. Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so we're going to close item 2 and move on to item number 3, public comment. I do not see any commenters in the room. So for participants on Zoom and phone, do you see a queue here in the room, Mr. Custodio? I mean, on Zoom?
No one has their hand raised on Zoom right now, but I think let's just give a moment. So we have one now from Barbara Schultz.
Okay. Sorry, I should have gotten all the way through. So if you would like to make a comment online, please do raise your hand, use the raise hand function or dial 9 to add yourself to the queue. Please also remember to unmute your mic on your device or press *6 on your phone after your name is called. The city attorney will be asking if public commenters require language interpretation before they begin. As a reminder, please use the Zoom interpretation function only when needed. Otherwise, join the main audio. Right.
Okay, first speaker, Barbara Schultz. You're welcome to speak.
Yes, thank you. My name is Barbara Schultz. I'm the Director of Housing Justice for Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles and Stay Housed LA. I was looking forward to seeing a report back on Stay Housed LA, but I don't see that in the presentation or on the agenda. I can let you know what I know, which is that we still have no rental assistance and still believe that we will not have enough legal services funding to last the 7 months of the contract. I do understand, however, that the housing department is working on these items. I guess it's just taking quite a while. So yes, just wanted to give you that update. Thank you.
Barbara, I'm sorry, could you repeat it? Because this is new information for me. So just one more time.
Sure. I started by saying I thought there was going to be a report back on the Stay Housed LA contract, but I didn't see it on the agenda. However, we still do not have any rental assistance right now, and we still are short on legal services money to last us the duration of the 7-month contract. I understand, however, that LAHD has a motion and a transmittal that should address these things. I just don't know when it's actually going to be heard in council, hopefully very soon.
Thank you, Barbara.
Sure.
Next speaker, Tony. Can you please unmute and you're welcome to speak? Tony?
I apologize. I hit the wrong button.
That's okay. You may proceed. Please unmute your mic and you may be able to speak.
I'm sorry, I don't need to speak right now.
This is public comment, so this is the only opportunity you have to speak. So if you have any comments, now would be the time to make them.
Okay, so I do have a question. My parents moved in this apartment since 1983, November of 1983, and now starting 2023, they started charging some illegal fee, which was sewer, trash, common electricity, and hot water. So I placed complaints with your office, and they sent them several letters. The last one was sent last week, and they still have not removed these charges. It's 4 charges they've added, plus they added a 5th charge, was landlord liability insurance. And all 5 charges are still on the account. And since the letters have been mailed out to this particular company, they have not removed them. So what do I do? What's my next step to take?
Does LAHD have direction that they can provide to Tony at this?
And I also want to mention, they put a 3-day notice on the door on Saturday. And they're falsifying the information that's on there. They're stating that I did not pay July, August, and September, which they have cashed all of those checks, and plus they cashed my October rent check. So I'm not understanding how they're putting all this false information on these documents, and how do they get away with all this information that they put on there?
Hello, I'm Marcella. I'm the director of the Rent Stabilization Division at the Housing Department. And it sounds like you have a complaint with us and working directly with the assigned housing investigator. So if they sent the landlord a notice, that means that they agree with you that those charges violate the rent stabilization ordinance. And so now we're working with the landlord to try to get those charges removed. And so we have to provide due process to the landlord. And if the landlord continues not to remove those charges, then our next step is we refer it to the office of the city attorney. So that's how the process works.
Okay,
So-
so this, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this has been since 2023. And it's no change since then.
And your case is still open?
They're open and closed. I keep filing because it's no change.
All right, Tony, without seeing the details of your case, who's your assigned housing investigator?
Right now I have Joseph.
Okay, I know who Joseph Placencia is. So I'll reach out to him. And you're Tony, and your last name?
Right, with the W.
Okay, we'll get back to you this week. I'm limited what I could tell you without knowing the facts of your case.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, LHD. Mr. Custodio, do we have additional comments?
No more public speakers.
No more,
Your Honor.
okay. And then should we wait for LHD's report regarding Barbara? Okay, great. We'll wait for that for Barbara Schultz's question. Thank you. Thank you all. So that concludes public comment. We're going to move on now to item number 4, which is the COC's the chair's report. But in lieu of the chair, you have the vice chair today. So I have great news. I'm happy to announce that we have two new members on the commission, and now we are fully seated. The first is seat 8, which is Antonia M. Root. As a reminder, this seat was most previously held by Jennifer Gata, and by ordinance, it's to be filled by an individual with at least 5 years' experience as an organizer or advocate working at the community-based organization level to address the housing needs of seniors and/or people with disabilities. Antonia is not able to be with us today, but she is an energetic leader and instructor focused on empowering diverse communities across Los Angeles County to achieve better health through prevention, nutrition, and physical activity. When she's able to join for the next COC meeting in November, we will allow her time for a full introduction. We'll then wish her welcome. Next, I am pleased to announce that in seat number 13, we are joined by Fernando Abarca. As a reminder, this seat was most previously held by Laura Raymond, and by ordinance, it's to be filled by an individual with at least 5 years' experience as a community leader or an organizer advocating for high-quality transit near affordable housing and job centers, and for identifying mobility options associated with the production of affordable housing. Would you like me to do your introduction, or would you like to do a self-introduction? I have your materials if you would like me to speak. Okay, all right. Please. All right. All right, I will speak. Fernando was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. His parents immigrated from El Salvador during the 1980s Civil War. He is a community organizer, policy analyst, and researcher primarily focused on alternative housing and community economic development strategies. Fernando has worked on local campaigns in Los Angeles, including the Legalized Street Vending campaign, while working for one of the largest affordable housing development nonprofits on the east side of Los Angeles. Through a Fulbright research scholarship, Fernando returned to his parents' native land of El Salvador, where he lived and partnered with community members to document the history of a community-owned land trust. He returned to Los Angeles to get his master's degree in urban and regional planning from, you guessed it, UCLA. Fernando is the Associate Director for Capital Strategies at the Right to the City Alliance, a national alliance of more than 90 community-based racial, economic, gender, and environmental justice organizations, growing grassroots power to halt gentrification and displacement and build democratic, just, and sustainable communities. In his role, he supports grassroots organizations in securing non-extractive patient capital to facilitate real estate acquisitions, thereby transitioning them to community-controlled structures, such as community land trusts and cooperatives. Through a mix of technical assistance support and capital investments, Fernando is able to support right to the city's long-term vision to remove land from the speculative market. Welcome. We're really pleased to have you. Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you. So next, I'm going to give you my interpretation of legislative brief or a discussion that happened a couple of weeks ago. And I'm saying it that way because the comments that I'm about to provide are my own and should not be seen to represent you all, the COC, because you haven't heard them before, but I want to provide the comments and open us up to a discussion. As we mentioned at the last COC, LAHD has released a NOFA of $387 million for affordable housing and preservation. $317 million of the NOFA funds are from Measure ULA, which is an amazing level of resources for production and preservation in the city. The applications are due at the end of October, and by year end, all will know which family developments will have been awarded. However, let's switch over to this platform. On September 9th, the state lawmakers unveiled a bill that would have would have limited the ULA transfer tax to sales of all new developments, multifamily housing, commercial, industrial, all new developments that were issued their first certificate of occupancy within the previous 15 years. The bill's authors argued that ULA is depressing development rather than general market conditions or an upcoming density law that gives developers density for free. As written, the bill would have curbed collections by an estimated 15 to 30%. You may recall that the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association has challenged in the courts ULA. This is the next level of challenges, which is to pass state law regulating and overriding locally approved ballot measures for transfer taxes. Again, it's a state measure to override a locally approved ballot measure. What's even more egregious, again, in my opinion, is that the bill was introduced in the last 72 hours of the legislative session through a gut and amend process, and that process didn't include housing justice folks. I understand that our housing justice colleagues are more than willing to discuss fixes to the legislation once a little more time has passed to let program funds enter the market and for us, the COC, to engage researchers in a full program evaluation, which it can do next year. This bill, SB 423, was continued until the next legislative session because its drafting included some fatal flaws. Generally speaking, housing justice and business folks are aligned that the state should not intervene in a charter city's voter initiatives. They agree that the courts wouldn't support that kind of move, and we agree that a state measure should not substantially change a local measure. I'm telling you all of this because while I have opinions and expect that you do too, we cannot negotiate legislation on the mayor's behalf. We cannot issue an open letter to the state or anyone else. We're appointed by the mayor, but we can communicate our recommendations to the mayor and the city council. I'd like to ask you to share your thoughts and comments, and then I'd like to ask Abigail and Richard and our IIG staff what they can do, what we should do with regards to documenting our concerns. So that's my statement. I'd like to open it up for COC comment.
I first thank you, Michelle, for raising this because I was hoping we would discuss this as well. This feels like of the highest priority and concern for this group who has dedicated and volunteered our time to be here to see something happening in Sacramento. To also overturn a voter passed initiative, right? So I think there's like many layers to this. I just want to echo my support that I do think it's really important that this commission, one, brings light to what has happened or may happen and figure out the best and strongest way for us to communicate that to the city council and the mayor as well.
Thank you. I have been concerned as a new member of the commission and as an economic development professional in the city of Los Angeles for the past 35 years. I have been concerned as I've gotten more and more acquainted with the birth of ULA and its implementation. Have been concerned that while the mansion tax was pitched as a mansion tax, but in fact is a tax on any piece of any property over $5 million. I have been concerned of that situation and concerned that there will be pushback from various parties, including the legislature. I think that continues to be a challenge. The fact that multifamily housing, industrial properties, commercial properties, I won't mind including luxury office buildings. That's a whole nother story. But I think that to have a blanket tax is going to continue to raise challenges at the legislative level. I think that there needs to be communication from the mayor's office to the legislature, and if change is required, then it's going to have to be by the voters. I don't think we can simply just push it off as unwanted criticism or unwanted opinions. The fact is that I would disagree. One, I would disagree that ULA is it has a negative effect on affordable housing. I think that's just it doesn't backed up by the facts. But is it something that has been has had a negative impact on economic development, on industrial development, on commercial development? I would say yes. On the economic development side, I would say that that's an issue. But I would disagree and ask that the mayor's office, strongly disagree with this idea that ULA is in fact has a negative impact on affordable housing development.
I'm totally new here, so I mean, I guess it's more of because it's just a comment at this point. It's just comment. I mean, I think what Roberto raised, I think those are, interesting comments and should be looked into and researched, which I think is part of the thing for next year to look at. I think and no argument on that. I think it should be analyzed. My main thing and concern in terms of like hearing the report back from you is like at what level of government those decisions are being made and at what level of government those issues are being heard. Like this is a local initiative that was passed by like local voters, so it should probably be determined at the local level as opposed to like a state bill or at the state legislature level. So my comment and my concern would mainly be focused on that aspect of it. But, I think, and to Roberto's point, like, I think, what is the number, 317 out of 380 million coming out of ULA, right? Like we're fighting financial constraints at all, especially from the financial sector. I mean, sorry, not the financial sector, from the federal government level, trickling down, right? Like we need all the type of resources available that we need. And if this is like the majority of the money coming in is coming in from the local level. For the local level to not have autonomy over like the decision like that, I think is something to, I don't know, it's a main point of concern for me personally.
I just want to say I second that. Well, yeah.
I would, there is no question that there are some sectors of the market that are struggling with this. I would only say that I'm on a board of a nonprofit, and nonprofits are also struggling with this. So there is definitely, issues here that need to be, understood. The mayor herself is struggling with this, right? I mean, there is no question that there is money here that is used for very good use. What do you do with all the struggles now that it's passed? I mean, that's an interesting comment. I think there is, if there was if we could, some adjustments now that we've been with it for quite some time, some adjustments are in place. I would definitely approve or at least lobby for some adjustments.
All right, I think that was fruitful discussion. I really appreciate everybody's comments and feedback. I know it's a strange time. I see Joe out there. Did you want to make should we, how would we, no, we're done.
Yeah, invite Joe to see if he is, but it's not public.
It's not public comment.
Did you close public comment?
I did.
So. If you have. Yes, you may. Yeah.
Joe, are you prepared to speak? Not for public comment, specifically on this matter.
But yeah, you can invite the you want to make that part of this discussion, that's fine.
Would that be okay with everybody? Okay, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Joe Donlin with the United House LA Coalition. Appreciate the Chair and Vice Chair bringing this topic up. We did belatedly send you all a letter, I think you have in your email right now, that does discuss this topic. And I'll just lift up a couple of points that are in there. There are two things going on here. There's the state legislation piece of it. There's SB 423, previously AB 698. And this most recent version operated under the theory that it could address a concern around a statewide measure from Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. And that is a real threat. And I would ask you all to be a part of an effort to defeat that, because that would repeal ULA and other transfer taxes. It would upend the ability for any local jurisdiction to raise new public revenues. However, in the context of the state legislation, we've always argued that, any sort of conversation or changes that, around ULA, those should be happening at the local level. Not only because this is a voter initiative and voters pass this is where its home is and where it applies, but also from a legal perspective, it is really, most sound to operate at the local level. And what's interesting is when SB 423 went forward, so there was this provision that said, well, this would only go into effect if the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association withdrew their measure or it did not qualify for the ballot with enough signatures. And in response to this bill, there were two opposition letters, both of them from business groups. Both of them were intended audiences, if you will, for this bill. That included the California Business Property Association and a few other groups on their letter, and then the California Business Roundtable. In both cases, they argued against state legislation. In the case of the business property owners, they said, who's to say that this won't get overturned by a future legislature? In the case of the California Business Roundtable, they said the courts have been clear that you cannot overturn a charter city dock transfer tax. And so on those points, we would agree with them. We do not agree what their solution is, which is to run their statewide measure. We stand in direct opposition to that. But, in summary, the exercise to go to the legislature seems to have been proven to be kind of an unnecessary distraction and a drain on resources. And we welcome your input and your thought around how to take action around this. But hopefully some of those points are helpful. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I want to then pivot to next steps. I'm looking at the IIG staff. We know we can't write intergovernmental legislation letters, yes. What can we do, and what's the process for making sure that all folks here are comfortable with the language? Or the city attorney, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll have to consult with our ethics
Okay.
attorney, because previously I think this issue came up, and while the conclusion was this body could not adopt and move forward a official position, of the body. We didn't get into the discussion on what could you do outside of that. So that would probably be the next question we have for her.
And I think one of the options we'll want to float is just writing a statement for the mayor's and
Yeah.
council's
That's right,
consideration,
that's
right? So I guess first we'll check in with city attorney's office, and then assuming we can do something, it feels like the governance ad hoc committee is best positioned to deliberate, then come back to the full COC with a statement, and whether or not we can take action on that is TBD. Yeah.
Does that sound okay? You have follow-up questions? Fernando?
Maybe in terms of like, I guess maybe from a communication standpoint and public engagement standpoint, I'm thinking, is there anything that, like, is there, and I don't know who controls the social media aspect of the COC, but like, can there be public engagement from that perspective, or is that also like that's a no-go?
I'm gonna say that's a no, because technically the COC can't take a position on legislation or pending legislation.
Okay. All right. Yes, please.
And this is just for clarification, because I'm looking at the bill. I'm sorry if this is just trying to understand it. It says a lot about coastal regions and like hazard fire severity zones, like they're controlling what can be developed in those areas and what can't.
That's a good question. So I frankly relied on my legislative peers to read and tell me that this was good or bad. So Joe, can you give a summary of maybe what the intent of 423 was? And the distance between the intent and the language?
Madam Vice Chair,
No?
we are dangerously moving beyond the scope of code, so we can just wrap it up.
Fair point.
Okay.
All right. Continue to read and do your research. All right. Okay, so that actually was all I wanted to say. That was the end of the chair's report. I'm closing item number 4, and we're going to move on now to the item number 5, which is our ad hoc report outs. I'll call upon the ad hoc committees to give a brief report of key conversations from their first meetings. First, the governance ad hoc. Oh goodness, I'm presenting this one. The governance ad hoc met twice to discuss considerations for the permanent inspector general hiring process. The committee will work closely with LHD as part of this process, and we look forward to sharing more with you in the coming months about the next steps. So again, that was regarding the permanent ad hoc. I'm sorry, the permanent inspector general hiring process, which will be covered in the LAHD's report. From the town hall ad hoc, I will also be giving a brief update. The committee has met 3 times since the last COC meeting. A high-level agenda was set for the town hall, which is being finalized, and the Eventbrite has been published. The committee is continuing outreach to organizations to partner with and for panel speakers. And then from the communications ad hoc, Commissioner D, I believe you're reporting out.
Yeah. Yes, so we have a slide presentation to present our updates. So for the past few months, the communications subcommittee has developed internal processes and infrastructure to launch the external communications and marketing strategies of the COC. Next slide, please. Okay. So here's some of what we've done. We have completed a branding guide and a template for social media and marketing content. So we've developed our internal process to create, approve, and post content. The way it works is we create a timeline that we approve for the IIG to start producing this content using our templates throughout the timeline. And then once those posts have been completed, the committee gathers to batch approve the posts so they can officially be posted. We created social media pages on Instagram and Facebook so far. So please go follow us and engage because we have officially begun posting. And we are also collecting engagement data as well. And most recently, we have been coordinating with the Town Hall ad hoc to produce and share Town Hall marketing materials as well for that event. Okay, so here we have a high-level overview of proposed content topics for the rest of this year. So far, we have posted introductory content for the public to get to know the COC and ULA and what they are, who we are. We posted on our social media accounts to announce and share meeting info to get people coming to these meetings. We will continue to use our accounts to increase public awareness and promote engagement and get people's voices out there. For the rest of the year, we will continue to familiarize the public with our role as the COC, including our member spotlights. So each of us would, introduce ourselves to the public. That way people know who is on the ad hoc. And I mean, the COC, not the ad hoc. And we will begin to educate about ULA programs, what ULA does, and continue to market the town hall happening in December. Slide 4. So for your reference, this is the color palette that we have been using for our website and the logo presented above. The COC logo incorporates colors of LAHD and ULA in our branding. So a lot of our aesthetic looks like this. And here's our full logo and our icon logo. All right. So as we mentioned, we did launch our social media pages. Here we have our Instagram account. So this is a little outdated because at ula.coc as of now has 56 followers and 10 posts to date. Our first post was on September 2nd, and that post currently has 793 views, 44 interactions, and it resulted in 9 new followers. Next slide. Okay, so our Instagram account is linked to our Facebook page at ULA Citizens Oversight Committee, which currently has 2 followers. All posts made on our Instagram, because it is linked, will automatically be posted to Facebook as well, so that's very efficient. Our Facebook engagement has remained low, with peak views at 18 and views in 1 post. Okay. So you may have noticed a Linktree site in our social media page is linked in our bios. This is a tool to host all relevant web pages we refer to, or what could be useful for any of our viewers to do their own further research. We included both the COC and LAHD ULA web pages, as well as a link to the Town Hall Eventbrite and our YouTube and meeting link so people can see our live stream meetings. We are excited to have launched the COC's communications, finally, after many meetings, and we look forward to expanding our reach in the future. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Solano. Really appreciate all the work of the whole ad hoc. Thank you so much. That closes item number 5. Right, and we're moving right along to item number 6, which is a brief report from the IIG. I'll now turn to Abigail from the Interim Inspector General staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coulter. Appreciate it. The IIG has been moving forward with the ULA audit alongside our selected contractor, MGO, Macias, Genie, and O'Connell, and LAHD. And MGO has provided the following updates for us regarding the audit process. So I'm just going to give a brief update of where we're at with the audit. So the financial audit for the periods covering April 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2023, and then the second period, which is July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, And the third period, July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025 is ongoing. So the first kind of 3 fiscal years. MGO has selected samples of revenues and expenditures for the applicable periods and provided the samples to LAHD's accounting team and the Office of Finance. LAHD accounting provided the supporting documents for the expenditures on the 24th, and then MGO is currently reviewing these documents. Supporting documents for the revenues are still pending from the Office of Finance, so they're still waiting to get those. And then other items requested by MGO are still pending from LAHD, but we're anticipating those will be sent over soon. And the audit is still moving forward in a timely fashion. It's expected to be completed by the end of November, and the final audit reports will be issued by December 1st, 2025. So we're making great timeline there. Yeah, any questions about the timeline, the audit?
Just reiterating, it's just an audit,
Just a financial audit, correct?
the financial audit. It is not an examination of the programs. It's just a financial audit.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate for our newer members and for the public that the measure requires an independent financial audit outside of what the controller is already doing. So that's why we're doing this. And we reapproved MGO as our selected contractor back in April. So that concludes my update, and I will pass it back to you, Chair or Vice Chair Coulter.
Thank you. Thank you, Abigail. That closes item number 6. We're now moving on to item number 7, which is the LAHD report. And Callie, I believe, is giving that report. Wow.
Saw someone move this podium up once, but I don't know how to do it. But good afternoon, everyone. Callie Hardy, Director of Strategic Engagement and Policy with LHD. I want to welcome our newest member. I'm very excited to have you on board and also have a fully seated committee now. So thank you so much for your time and for joining us. So I will be presenting this month's update from LHD and sharing some very exciting updates on recent ULA milestones and accomplishments and just really some of the progress that we've made to date. And then I'll provide a preview of our forthcoming ULA staffing plan. Following my updates, I will be passing the presentation over to some of my colleagues, Marcella DeShirley, who's the director of our rent division, as well as Regina Alcazar with our housing and planning and economic analyst with our policy team, who will give a more detailed update on the ULA income support program. So first, like we do every meeting, we'll start with a review of our revenue and expenditures report. And beginning with some really exciting news on the ULA revenue front. The fiscal year has gotten off to an incredibly strong start. In July, we collected $58.7 million in ULA revenue, which is the highest amount of ULA revenue collected in a single month to date. So I just want to point that out for the committee that we started off the fiscal year very, very strong. That was followed up in August with another very strong month, over $45 million in revenue, which was the 3rd highest month to date. That was until we got news yesterday of our receipts for September. Since that was late breaking, that is not up on this slide, but I couldn't resist sharing it with you all. For September, we collected $51.4 million. So that brings our total for the first quarter of this fiscal year to $155.7 million. And I'll just note, if we are able to keep that pace for the remaining 3 quarters of the year, we will be on pace to exceed $600 million in revenue for this year. So in all, since we began collection of the transfer tax back in April 2023, our total revenue to date, including our latest month, is now nearly $881.9 million, with our monthly revenue continuing to trend upwards in a very strong fashion. Moving on to our budget to actuals report. So this report includes expenditures and information available through the end of August, so the first 2 months of the fiscal year. And as this is our first report for this new fiscal year, you'll note that we've made some adjustments to the tables to reflect the carryover, or basically the unspent balance from all of our prior fiscal years in that first column there on the left. And then our fiscal year 25-26 allocations there in the second column. Then the remaining balance shown on these slides reflects the total remaining, right, after considering that cumulative unspent balance, allocation from this year, minus our year-to-date expenditures and encumbrances. And this is a snapshot, really top level of the top line expenditure categories, and so I'll get into more detail on each of the programs. So beginning with our affordable housing programs, as always, we are continuing to see a gradual spend down on program funds under the ULA multifamily program. Again, as a reminder for this committee and for the public, what that reflects is the approximately $55.6 million that were awarded through our first NOFA, the ULA Multifamily Accelerator Plus NOFA, and awards that were made last year. But most of our funds for the majority of the affordable housing programs are being made available through our Homes for LA NOFA, which, as has been noted, is currently underway. And I'll share more on that in a bit. Additionally, following the first loan reservation round for the ULA homeownership assistance program funds, we are now beginning to show some expenditures for that program category. I also have a few more updates on that program later in this presentation, and I think we'll continue to see some expenditures drawing down on that program. And then lastly, the other highlight I wanted to note on this slide is that we're currently working to complete the procurement process necessary to launch the ULA capacity building program. On August 22nd, the City Council authorized LAHD to enter into a contract with our selected contractor, the Liberty Hill Foundation, to administer the ULA capacity building program. And we're currently working with Liberty Hill to execute their contract, and following that, we expect work to get underway for that program. Yes.
What's the budget for that program?
So it's approximately 1%. I'm going to get the percentages wrong because I don't show them on here. But we have available for the first year of the contract the $3.9 million that are showing on this slide.
3.9 million?
Yes, that's correct.
And does that include administrative costs?
I'm sorry?
Does that include administrative costs?
That is the all-in program dollars for that contract.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving over to the homelessness prevention programs, I won't spend time on the income support program because we'll have a more detailed update on that at the end of this presentation, but just note we're working on a framework to start utilizing the funds that were allocated for last year for that program. And I'll touch on the eviction defense and prevention program, which is currently being spent through Stay Housed LA via our contract with Legal Aid Foundation, or LAFLA. So just noting first the expenditures here for eviction defense. We are continuing to spend down on the existing encumbered balances on the contract. So over 3.5 million in expenditures for those first 2 months. And then also continuing work on related work on the outreach and education component of that contract through their subcontract with Liberty Hill. So to touch on the report request from this committee at our last meeting, I know this committee did request some additional information on the status of the contract with LAFLA for Stay Housed LA. So unfortunately, our Assistant General Manager, Anna Ortega, who I would have liked to be able to present a more detailed and more robust report to you all, is not able to join us. We hope to have her at a future meeting, but I can share some sort of status updates and reiterate some of the information that was shared during public comment as well. So as of this week, we did release a request for proposals, or RFP, to continue these services. The RFP was issued on September 22nd. And the deadline to submit proposals will be on November 3rd. And additional information about that procurement opportunity can be found on our website, the LAHD website, as well as rampla.org. And And as we shared at our last meeting, but just as a reminder, in order to ensure the continuation of the services while we are completing that RFP process, on June 27th, the City Council did approve a 7-month contract extension for our existing contract, and did increase some of the total contract amount in order to encumber the funds that were allocated in fiscal year 24-25. And we're currently exploring and evaluating options to add some of the additional approved funding for the current fiscal year, including the short-term emergency assistance funds, to that existing contract so that we can continue to facilitate continued delivery of those services up until the point at which we have a new contractor on board. And so I hope to be able to share more updates with you all at our next meeting, but apologies, I can't provide more, but that's what I can share at this time. Okay, and then moving forward to just closing out on the budget to actuals report with our administration, we're continuing to see expenditures here under our ULA administration budget as well, about 1.2 million in admin expenditures for those first 2 months. And just again, this is all the ULA admin support, including staff, systems contracts, as well as the work of the Inspector General team. Okay, moving on now, and thank you all for bearing with me. I have a lot of updates today. Just some updates on some of our recent milestones and accomplishments. And first, I think just to take some time to spotlight that since we last met, we did launch the Homes for LA NOFA, which has been a tremendous effort done in very close partnership with this body as well. And so as noted by the Vice Chair, the Homes for LA NOFA will make available over 316 million in ULA funding for production and preservation activities through 5 of our ULA programs. And that includes the ULA multifamily, ULA alternative models new construction, ULA alternative models preservation, ULA acquisition and rehab, preserving affordability, and of course, the ULA operating assistance programs. We did open the application period on September 5th, meeting the timeline that we worked very closely with this body to establish so that we can see timely release of those funds. And pursuant to the program guidelines that we also developed with this body, we did publish the project and sponsor underwriting guidelines along with the opening of the NOFA application window. Applications will be due by October 20th, and following the close of that application deadline, staff are going to be really working around the clock to review and score applications so that we can meet our target of transmitting recommended funding awards to the City Council in December of this year. So we're targeting a very tight turnaround to get our recommendations out and moving forward for approval. Throughout the application period, LHD is also working to provide technical assistance to applicants. This includes hosting virtual office hours every Tuesday at 4 p.m. and Thursday at 1 p.m. And we're working on a weekly schedule as well to publish responses to all questions received. Also in response to some of the questions that we've received, we're working to publish further guidance on scoring methodologies within the next week or so for some of the areas where there's need for additional clarity on how LHD will be scoring some of the criteria. And our hope is that this will make the self-scoring process clearer and giving applicants a clearer picture of their overall competitiveness. I'll just note information about all of this and more is available on the LHD website at the link provided on this slide. And I really look forward to keeping this body up to date about our progress on the NOFA and sharing more information as we can at future meetings.
You said more scoring guidance will come out next week or the week after?
Within the next week or two. Yes, we're working on that right now. Another kind of exciting update for you all is that we have also issued a request for proposals or RFP to procure our fund administrator who will administer the ULA acquisition and rehab small NOAA program with our application deadline also in October, this one on October 27th. As just a refresher, the small NOAA program is intended to fund the acquisition and rehabilitation of small naturally occurring affordable housing properties. So think our small rent stabilized properties whose affordability may be at risk. The procurement process is a competitive bid to identify and select a fund administrator who would operate the small NOAA program on a day-to-day basis and provide really the financial expertise to evaluate a borrower's creditworthiness before dispersing loan funds. We did host a bidders conference for the solicitation last week, and we're looking forward to seeing what proposals come in for this opportunity as well. And as with the NOFA, we are also working to provide technical assistance and answer questions from potential bidders. And we have the link there as well for additional information about this opportunity, and it can also be located on the LHD website. Turning to the ULA Homeownership Opportunities Program, we are also making some progress here, as I alluded to. As set forth in the ULA program guidelines, the ULA Homeownership Opportunities Program funds are implemented via the department's existing Low-Income Purchase Assistance Program, or what we call LIPA. And the LIPA program helps first-time low-income home buyers purchase homes by providing loans of up to $161,000 to cover the down payment, acquisition, and closing costs. In July, the department made available our first round of loan reservations that was using the ULA homeownership program funds. And a total of 10 loans were funded with ULA funds, benefiting 23 household members for a total funding amount of just over $1.6 million. And one additional loan, I understand, was processed just this week for a total amount of $161,000. And we may have some additional updates on these numbers as we continue to process loans for the most recent round. And we've also announced 2 additional upcoming loan reservation rounds on November 12th and March 4th, where we'll plan to make available a total of 18 loan reservations during each round. And as we work to, continue to publish our schedule on future reservation rounds, we will be, of course, sharing that with this committee as well. And then lastly, on the homeownership program, I'll just note that right now we're actively working to launch our data dashboard for this program, which will share some more detail about the program funding and the participants. And I hope to be able to share that with you all at a future meeting as well. Okay, and then last but very not least is a brief update on the status of our ULA staffing plan. I've teased this out a couple times in past meetings. And we're currently finalizing our report right now and hoping to release this for City Council consideration next month. So in terms of what to expect with this report, this is really looking at a comprehensive analysis of the new staff positions that will be needed to support ongoing, sustained, and successful implementation of our ULA programs. And I'll note, as you could tell by this presentation, we have been doing a lot of work and doing a lot of this with our existing staff. And this has been a strain on the department. And so we, are really taking this staffing plan as an opportunity to get the staff that we need at appropriate levels to sustain and grow our ULA program, our ULA funded programming. So just to touch on what would be included within this, right, is really staff within all bureaus at LHD, looking across our entire department at the staffing resources that will be needed. Within our Housing Development Bureau, what this will look like is additional staff to support the development and financing of our ULA funded affordable housing projects, including dedicated staff to oversee that ULA Small NOAA Fund Administrator contract, as well as additional staff to support implementation of our ULA Alternative Models program. Additionally, we're, within Housing Development Bureau, we're also looking at the needed support within our Technical Services Division, who would provide critical support for things like our construction services, our prevailing wage compliance, as well as looking at our Asset Management Division to support, and needs within our Asset Management Division to support our growing LHD portfolio. Within our Regulatory Code and Compliance Bureau, what we love to call RCCB, the report will also include additional staffing requests. This would include looking at additional housing investigators to support implementation of our ULA Protections from Tenant Harassment program, as well as new staff to support outreach and education efforts and support future implementation of our short-term emergency assistance program. Within our executive management division, we're looking at additional staff for our policy teams, our data teams, and our communications teams. I'm including a dedicated staff person to oversee that ULA capacity building program, as well as additional support for more proactive communications efforts intended to increase public awareness of our ULA funded programs and services and to help support more targeted stakeholder outreach. And then none of this certainly would be possible without the support of dedicated staff in our administration bureau. As such, we'll also be looking to request the necessary staff support in functions ranging from our payroll, our contracts and procurement, accounting, and systems and database management staff. And these investments will really be critical to ensure things like timely payments to our contractors and partners, as well as ensuring that our online applications are user-friendly and accessible. Beyond those positions within LHD, the report is also looking at needed staffing requests for our partners at the Bureau of Contract Administration, which is responsible for our project labor agreement, compliance and monitoring. And then last but certainly not least, we'll include the necessary request to establish a new Office of the ULA Inspector General, which I'll touch on the next slide. But last thing I'll just say here is that all of the staffing costs associated with these new positions would be supported by the ULA administration funds, including the ULA COC budget for COC staff.
I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second. How many people is this?
So I will say we're working on finalizing it, but it will be a significant amount of staff requests. Yeah, I'm dotting all the final T's, so I don't want to put a number out, yes, but it will be significant, yeah, but necessary, I will say. So looking at the proposal for the Office of the Inspector General in a little bit more detail, as provided by the ULA measure, the city is responsible for providing adequate dedicated staffing to the COC. This does include the role of an Inspector General, as many of you I think probably well know, who is really intended to act as the lead staff person serving the Citizen Oversight Committee, as well as additional supporting staff. And as you all know, the role of the Inspector General right now is being conducted on an interim basis by the Interim Inspector General team at Estelano & Associates. And we've definitely been very appreciative of the work of the IIG team to date, but we do find a need to identify a permanent home for the Inspector General team on a long-term basis. As set forth by the measure, there are specific parameters related to the role of the Inspector General in particular, which can be somewhat challenging to incorporate within the city's existing framework. But we think we've landed on a proposed structure for the Office of the ULA Inspector General that aligns with all of those necessary requirements, as well as meeting the nature of the ULA measure. You want to, yes?
Yeah, just to be clear, and it will continue to be an outsourced activity.
So what this proposal is looking at, you segued me perfectly, is looking at having full-time staff within the city who would be dedicated to conduct this work on an ongoing basis. And so what is presented on this slide is the proposed organizational chart for the Permanent Inspector General team, which would include the creation of an exempt position for the role of the Inspector General, and really to align with the requirements of the measure, and to facilitate the participation and really guidance and leadership of this body in the hiring of this role. We will be requesting an exemption for this position so that we can hire for this candidate outside of our traditional civil service process. The Inspector General themselves would be reporting directly to the COC for really all of their duties, including direction on conducting the work of this body, setting the COC agendas, conducting our annual town hall, doing the support and contracting for the annual external audit, working with you all on setting your budgets, developing your ad hoc committee work plans, and so on and so forth, all the great work that is currently being done by the IIG team. To support all of that work, we are anticipating a need for a team of 3 additional full-time staff. So they would be full-time staff dedicated to the work of this committee as well, who would be reporting directly to the IG. And the way we're looking at this right now is that a need for 2 staff to support and be dedicated to the work of the COC, with 1 additional staff person really overseeing and supporting the work of the yet-to-be-launched ULA Tenant Council. And I know this was alluded to earlier, so I'll just touch on it a bit as well, that we are currently working with the Governance Ad Hoc Committee to develop a recommended hiring process for the role of the Inspector General that will ensure the COC's participation and guidance throughout that hiring process. And I anticipate that we'll be able to present a recommended hiring process to the full COC for consideration and approval at our next meeting.
So who is the COC responsible for the hiring decision?
So we're working on the way that will work specifically in coordination with basically the involvement of LHD and the personnel department, but making sure that we have COC representation on, for example, the interview panel and the hiring decisions.
Sorry for making a point, but I just wanted, is the hiring decision the COC's decision, or we're simply part of an interview panel?
No, the idea would be to involve, I think the idea is that we're still developing what exactly the process will look like, right? But that we have COC representation in the decision-making. I think the question that we're working through is how does the full body participate versus members that are identified to participate on behalf of the COC. But the goal is to have COC active involvement in the decision-making process.
You're welcome to ask follow-up questions.
That's fine for now.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know if there's any other questions on that. That does conclude my part of the presentation, but I'll pause for more questions before passing it over to the team to share update on income support.
So I just want to comment. I wanted to comment about the number of jobs that this piece of legislation is creating and supporting at LHD. And I understand that with positions lost in the last budget, a number of them were also able to be absorbed with ULA dollars. And so I'm just emphasizing we're keeping people working on a number of levels. So
to kind of follow up on that, I guess, do you expect that these positions are going to be new hires or hires within the current city staff?
For the Office of the Inspector General or the
housing department staff?
I don't know. I mean, I can't really speak to how, each of the positions would be filled, but we would go through the civil service hiring process, which is open to promotional opportunities for existing city employees, as well as open generally, as well as open opportunities for new people to join the city workforce. So I suspect it will be a combination of people moving into new roles and new opportunities for existing city employees, as well as new positions for new folks. But they would be new positions.
Thank you so much for the update. That was great. Usually we get like kind of sad updates, but this was fantastic. So thank you. And then I also wanted to ditto Michelle's comment about the amount of jobs that this is producing, which I think is fantastic, which segues me to something I want to place a pin in for the communications ad hoc. And if I don't get it out now, I'll forget when the next meeting rolls around, but I would love for us to talk about how we can incorporate some of this good news into stuff that we can post on content. I think it would be great for the public to know just how our ULA dollars are being put to use and the fact that we're creating jobs, et cetera. And then that leads me to another question to go along with that pin for our ad hoc is I can't recall if it's in our scheduling, but announcements like the next round of LIPA funding. I don't know if that makes it into our content calendar, but if it hasn't, I think we should discuss adding those sorts of things to our content calendar at our next communications ad hoc. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and pass, oh, any other? Okay, I'll go ahead and pass the podium over to my colleagues.
Hello, it's me again, Marcella, and I come with good news. I helped assisted with the interim ISP program, and I also handled the past COVID-19 emergency renters assistance programs starting in 2000, including the the ULA emergency renters assistance program. So as of June of this year, we distributed all ULA ISP funds to 494 low-income disabled senior households with a one-time income assistance payment of $20,000. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but we chose applicants that met this eligibility from the prior program of the ULA short-term emergency renters assistance program. So those individuals that we couldn't pay for that program, we ended up selecting them for this program, and we're able to fund a lot of those applications. And one of the criteria was that in order to receive the funds, that these eligible tenants had to complete a free public benefit consultation and receive tax information.
But just in case, that's amazing. Thank you. There's 494 households that.
Yes,
just got
absolutely.
$20,000 each. That's amazing.
And our partners that help us achieve this was the Housing Rights Center. We contracted with them. They're actually the ones that verified the eligible applicants by, reviewing their documentation to make sure they met the program guidelines, and they are the ones that also issued the payments to the tenants or landlords. Our Legal Aid Foundation is the one that provided that legal consultation, public benefit tax information with the tenants. And then our Change Well project assisted us with planning and implementation of the actual program. And here are some demographics of who was paid of those 494 tenants. So here you'll see we paid disabled seniors. Some of those, they had to have been disabled or senior, but some of them were a combo. They could have been disabled and senior. And then we have who we paid by race or ethnicity, the majority being Hispanic, and then Black or African American. Household gender, mostly female, followed by male. And then household size, the majority was one-person households, and the majority were 30% AMI household income. And here we have the breakdown by where these tenants live according to council district. So the majority of being in CD1, CD10, and CD13. I will say that CD10 and 13, and CD1, they're actually very dense neighborhoods as well. So predominantly we're paid in those areas. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions? Yes.
Any thoughts why districts 6 and 7 numbers were so low?
Yes, because that is the valley, and the valley is predominantly single-family homes, and they don't have as many multifamily units as we do in the other council districts.
And just I'm new here. The assistant program, did it apply to single-family rentals?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, hand it over to you.
Thank you. Amazing. Great. Thank you, Marcella. I'm Regina Alcazar, analyst with the Housing Department. And we also wanted to provide a brief update on the status of the emergency round of the income support program. I know it says disaster relief on the screens, on the slides, but I'm going to refer to the program moving forward as sort of the emergency program.
in order to incorporate what we adopted in our previous meeting, our previous COC meeting. And as a reminder, this second iteration of the program would use the 14.6 million in funds appropriated in fiscal year 23-24 to address the immediate need for financial assistance to households impacted by the emergencies this year. We are partnering with the city's Community Investment for Families Department, or CIFD, to implement the program moving forward. It was a natural partnership because they have the experience and ran the city's first guaranteed income program, I want to say 2 years ago now, and is now continuing that program targeted at domestic violence survivors. And we would also be utilizing their network of 19 family source centers to provide in-person support to future participants. So, like I said, partnering with CIFD on the program moving forward was very natural. So as shared in prior COC meetings, the eligibility criteria is displayed here. So a household must be a renter in the city, of course, and must have a senior and/or a person with a disability. The household income must be at or below 50% area median income. The household must be rent burdened, spending more than 30% of their income on rent. They must be at risk of homelessness. No landlords or master tenants or homeowners are eligible, and the applicant must not be related to the landlord or owner, of course. And then due to the timeline of the first interim program that Marcella just discussed, participants of the interim program are ineligible. Okay. So anticipating a great need for this resource as decided by the COC, and the slides shown here are the prioritization criteria through a grid. So the first tranche or tier of eligible applicants who will be prioritized are those who have the greatest need. So households that are impacted by this year's emergencies. They have an income at 30% of the area median income. They must also be severely rent burdened and spend more than 50% of their income on rent, and reside in a unit subject to the city's rent stabilization ordinance. The second tier prioritized are households that meet the eligibility criteria, of course. They're impacted by this year's emergencies, income at 30% AMI, severely rent burdened, and then so on. As you move down to the tiers, removing the last prioritization criteria, which would then open it up to all remaining households that meet the eligibility. Okay, so the burning question that we all have, I'm sure, is what is taking so long? And when will applications open? We have been working through the design decisions of the program, and as I mentioned, transitioning the program over to our partners at CIFD. And I do have a little sad news that I do have to share, that the timeline for launching the program is being pushed. So as many of you know, due to budget constraints this year, as you voted by council, CIFD is one of the departments that has been instructed by council and the mayor to consolidate with the departments of youth development, aging, and economic workforce development. So while this consolidation would ultimately benefit the utilization of this program long-term, this transition is currently underway, and staff are reassessing the best process forward for expanding support to applicants by partnering with both CIFD's Family Source Centers, as well as the Department of Aging's Multipurpose Senior Centers. In addition to that, we have just been informed this week that the contractor by which we would be able to host and process applications for the emergency round is unfortunately no longer a viable option. So LHD and CFD are reassessing other options that would allow us for moving the program forward as quickly as possible without having to go through a formal procurement process that could take a minimum of 6 months. And so, while we were aiming to submit our report to launch the emergency program to council by early next month, so due to these unforeseen circumstances, we are having to pivot our approach at this time. And I unfortunately don't have an estimate of when we can reopen applications, but we will definitely report back at the next COC meeting on when we can launch the next round. And I can take any questions now. Say it again. For assisting with our applications. So with the interim round, as Marcella mentioned this a little bit, but we were able to utilize applications that were submitted to the short-term emergency rental assistance program, ULA program. And so we hosted the application internally within LHD. We had a contractor who helped us process and verify applications. Unfortunately, that contract is expired. So we currently don't have a contract that would provide the support for processing and verifying applications. And like I said, this was news as of yesterday, so we are trying to figure out the best option to move forward as quickly as possible without having to procure. But yes, and I unfortunately don't have an answer for you as to who else we could contract with.
Who is the contractor?
We were going to go through an existing contract supported by the mayor's office. Unfortunately, that contractor, I don't know if I can mention who they are, but they're going out of business. So it's a definite, there's no possibility that we could contract with them, unfortunately.
Sorry, can I follow up with a question on the timeline? So this is information as of yesterday. So the timeline that says here, program implementation, which is around December. You just mentioned at minimum, it'll take at minimum 6 months?
So we are currently assessing options if we can try to find another contract that we can, that provides the scope of work that we need. Then that could shorten our timeline to have us stand up the program faster. We were anticipating launching, by December or January, but if we will need to procure for that scope of work, we would go to council in October to request the authority to procure. And from there, it would take minimum 6 months. Yes. So that was it.
So it's like after March?
Around April or May of next year. Yeah. Which I understand we're trying to address an emergency. And so I understand the frustration. But like I said, we're assessing options, and hopefully by next COC, we'll have a better answer for you and a better solution.
Can I ask one more question on
course.
the, just curiosity? I'm wondering if based on like the prioritization structure and the tiers and eligibility, like, is there like a sense for like how many folks, families might benefit from, based on like how many families in like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? Like, is there like a sense? Maybe not, but.
Based on sorry, let me just go back to that. There it is. So within each tier, unfortunately, I do not have an estimate. The one prioritization criteria, which is labeled as disaster impact, which I'll refer to as someone who has been, or a household that has been impacted by a recent emergency. That number is difficult to define. And I will say that overall, the program is expected to serve 1,000 households, an estimated number of 1,000 households. Within these tiers, I unfortunately am not able to provide an estimate for each.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions about this specific, I have kind of like a more general.
Sure.
For LHD. I guess I'm very frustrated that we're not getting, and this is not you at all. I'm very frustrated we're not getting the report back today on the Stay Housed LA program. I understand that Anna Ortega was not able to be here today, but I don't see why that means that someone else couldn't present that in her place. We're on a very quick ticking timeline on that. It's a 7-month extension and we're 3 months in already. So we're hoping to maybe get a report back at month 5, which just doesn't seem reasonable. And I want to reiterate, I think that the questions that we had from this commission, so it's very clear, wasn't just about like the impact on tenants, but I think there's a question about how this could have even happened, that we're in this situation. And it's something that is like I've seen news articles, right, about this happening. It's undermining a program that's been effective and helpful because there's no clarity about how it's going to look. And it's all kind of been thrown up into the air I understand there are issues with whether it's a sole source contract or whatever, but I don't understand why that came up in mid-June instead of whenever it was first brought up. It should have been brought up earlier. It should have been addressed earlier. I think that's something that really needs clarity and accountability. And as our contractor told us, they're concerned about running out of money. If they're running out of money by month 5, what's going to happen? Like a report back that just says they ran out of money is not useful for the public to know. So I just want to kind of raise that here because I do think it's still really important. And I think that we as the COC should think about whether there's something that we should be doing in response to besides just waiting for a report back, because I find this very, very frustrating. And I just don't think it's an acceptable way for this program to be moving.
So if I'm understanding, it's a procurement, like what's going on with procurement?
Well, as I understand it, the reason that the contract was not extended was because it had been approved by both the city council and the mayor as a sole source contract. This was after it had been originally a sole source contract. And so this was kind of a renewal of a sole source contract. And then in the 11th hour, the city attorney's office determined that it could not be a sole source contract, which also I would say is frustrating because we also see in the news a very high profile sole source contract that the city attorney has on other cases. So we're watching both of these things happen. And I think it just undermines like the public trust in the program. And so I think it's important that we understand why it happened in this way.
So I need help with the link. So we're looking for a more immediate report back and more detail about what happened. And
I guess one of the questions maybe is what if the rest of the commission agrees, so don't presume, whether there's also a way for us to raise our concerns about this as like an issue too, and where would that statement go if there is a statement, or what does that look like?
Okay, I'm looking at Abigail and Richard regarding, we have that down. Is a question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, and I will defer to the city attorney, of course, but the COC is welcome to make statements and submit them. I do think that we would need to have that be an action item. So I think that's the guidance that I can give.
So if it's an action item, it needs to go on an agenda. There needs to be a meeting called to move forward on that action item.
Yeah, and so our next meeting is in November, so we can think about what that would look like for November, if there's an appetite for a different, meeting cadence outside of that November meeting, that's an option, but just given like capacity and folks' ability to be here and make sure that we have like quorum and enough time for LAHD to prep anything that we would require, it feels like November is the best and most fair option. But yeah, just the essentially we would need to, if we wanted to do something prior to November, we'd need to call another meeting. And I want to make sure that everyone's capacity is kept in mind.
And I guess a question for you all is, does it need to be an action item, or is the ask really for more information sharing?
Not sure. What do you?
I mean, I think there's definitely a more information sharing. I think it's hard because I expected a report back today so that we would know if we needed to have an action item for November. So I kind of feel like we need to put on the agenda an action item for November, but it has to be probably after the report back. So
Right, because that's 2 months away.
exactly.
Is there the possibility that we invite someone who can provide the information to an ad hoc group so that a subset of the COC can get the information directly, kind of deliberate, ask questions, and then we can put, short of an action item, even just a discussion item so that it's agendized for November, if it doesn't necessarily need action?
Just so I'm clear, are we, I mean, if I'm not, please, are we asking, again, are we still referring to the LAFLA contract? Okay. Are we basically questioning the fact the city attorney's office is requiring an open RFP and open RFP, or are we dealing, and again, I'm sorry if I'm confused, have services ceased at this point? And is that our concern?
So services have not ceased. Barbara Schultz had said that they were running out of money so they have a 7-month extension right now that I think started July 1. So they're like halfway into that, I guess, but they're running out of money now and don't have some money. So services haven't ceased, but it sounds like they're being affected. I think that that's part of, I think, the report back question had been, how might this affect services? I also think that my concern is also to raise, not even necessarily that was determined to be a sole source contract, but the timing with which it was determined to be a sole source contract or could not be a sole source contract was 2 weeks before the expiration of the previous contract, after it had already been approved by city council and I believe by the mayor's office too. And so that just seems highly irregular. And really, I think, caused a lot of issues with the program continuing to run right now.
I guess you talked earlier about the RFP, and it has in fact been released?
Yes, it has been released as of the 22nd. As of the 22nd.
As of September 22nd?
Yes.
With the due date of?
I lost my notes. It's somewhere here.
November 3rd. Sorry, November 3rd.
November 3rd. So and then there has to be an evaluation period, and that has to go back to city council council for approval to mayor. So you're talking about basically an actual contract that's not gonna happen until probably January.
So what I can say, and is my understanding is that the staff are working to expedite our process as much as possible in order to have a selected contractor before the city council for approval before the expiration of the contract extension. So that is certainly what staff are working toward so that we can avoid interruption in services.
Sorry, what's the end of the extension period for LAFLA's
January
contract?
31st.
January 31st is the
7 months.
LAFLA, okay.
You cut it close.
Is there a contingency plan in case that doesn't happen?
So I would really request that we maybe continue this to a further discussion when I can have the right folks here to speak to all of the questions. I do really apologize that we couldn't make that happen today. I'm trying to provide as much information as I can to you all about where we are with the process. But I don't know that I can share a lot more right now on where we are. And I do like the recommendation to take up a more detailed conversation in an ad hoc committee so that we can address some of these conversations in a more timely manner. I do really appreciate you pushing us on this and the questions that you're raising. And I think that potentially an ad hoc committee might be a good place for us to try to work through some of these questions.
If I could interject for a second. So it sounds like the next step here is to have the IIG coordinate with LAHG and just confirming who the right contacts are, routing that through an ad hoc group. I think another thing is just to collect questions from you all so that whoever is going to be the representative from the city is prepared to address those concerns. Does that sound good?
This is the governance ad hoc probably, or I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
We'll have to figure out.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to y'all with a proposal on that.
Jacob, you look like you want.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right time, but in general, I mean, the question is, and I think that's part of what is brought up, is how strong are we in really influencing the process? I mean, we talked last time or several times, about how long the NOFA takes. And sure enough, the NOFA is taking way too long, in order, when we have the money and people need the money and we have the audience. And in some cases we are being, people are asking about how well this process is going. So that's an issue. I'm looking at budgets and there is, over $200 million that are still out there that we can do work with. And we are just, everything it takes too long. And it very well could be that it's an issue of staffing, but nevertheless, nobody out there that needs the housing cares about staffing. Everybody cares about what's happening. And I just think that for us as a COC, it's a question is how influential we feel we are and how influential we want to be in order to make sure that that things happen faster, that money is allocated faster, that NOFAs don't take 6 months to be evaluated and to come out and get evaluated and all of this. So I'm just putting it on the table for all of us to think about it. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to me, for sure.
I'm going to push back a little bit. In particular for the production dollars, I have no pushback on the homeless prevention dollars, but the production dollars, these are potentially tens of millions of dollars that are going to any, one project. And the careful consideration of which projects those go to feels really important to me, that we're very intentional about who those dollars get allocated to. And even once they get allocated, it takes months to get through the due diligence process with all the various funders. And so there just is a delay that it's built into the construction process that is long. And just sort of is. And I don't think from a production standpoint, that's a ULA problem. I think that's just a construction problem and just sort of is. So that's my only pushback is on the production dollars. The homelessness prevention, I have no pushback on. So, and you're welcome to push back on me.
I can talk all day about production dollars, all day. You don't want me to start about production dollars.
If I may, just make a plug, just in the spirit of talking about the production dollars, I think that is one of the reasons why we're looking at different models with this NOFA, including the alternative models programs, which are funding at a higher commitment than we have in the past to hopefully expedite the process. But anyway, I couldn't resist making that plug, but.
Thank you. I think that is it for that item, at least, and I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The IIG is going to figure out a process and get the right people on the call. Okay, that sounds good. I think that is the last thing on our agenda, except for the usual call for future agenda items. And so go ahead,
Quick
please.
question.
Yep.
Did we get the town hall budget issue resolved? Or do we need to add it as an agenda item?
Do we want to add
So-
that? Is good.
The IIG had a conversation with LAHD on that one, and we're on the same page in terms of what the overall budget is. It's just there are just some contracting things on the back end that we need to work through, but we can report back to the town hall ad hoc on what the resolution is.
Okay with it?
If it's been resolved?
I mean, the basic thing is that right now we are within what's currently budgeted under the IIG's contract. Anything over and above what we have expended to date might need to be financed by LAHD, and so we just need to kind of figure that out as a contingency. And the IIG team needs to go back and do a detailed kind of rundown of costs that we might need to have covered by LAHD as a contingency pending a contract amendment.
Yeah, because I don't understand. It's $10,000, guy.
It's a whole discussion, and it's not technically agendized. So, but we can report back to the ad hoc in like much more detail without going through like a 20-minute budget discussion right now.
I'm just saying, look, if we need to have an action item to basically make sure that the town hall is properly funded, then put it on the agenda.
The COC has taken the action it needs to. Right now, it's an administrative and contracting thing with LHD that we have to work through.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Call for future agenda items. Jean, we've got the report back. Yes. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. That closes item number 8. That concludes our meeting. I officially say we are now adjourned. I have no idea what time it is. 4:18. We're now adjourned, and our next convening is November 20th here in this same room. Thank you.
Thank you very much.